Admiral Kate Phillips stood on the bridge of the USS Liberation, humanity's new flagship built from salvaged alien technology. 6 months had passed since the destruction of the Confederation's primary fleet at Earth. Now she watched as another star system burned under human assault. The Vorthan system had been a major slave processing center for the Confederation. Millions of beings from dozens of species had been broken and sorted here before being shipped to labor camps across the galaxy. Now the processing stations were smoking ruins and their former prisoners were free. Admiral, we're receiving surrender. Requests from the remaining Confederation outposts, reported Captain Jake Morrison from his station. He wore the uniform of the Free Worlds Alliance now, the organization humanity had created to unite all freed species under one banner. Ignore them, Phillips said coldly. We didn't come here to accept surrenders. We came here to end them. The war had changed since Earth's victory. Word of humanity's triumph had spread across the galaxy faster than the Confederation could contain it. Enslaved species on hundreds of worlds had risen in rebellion using tactics learned from intercepted human broadcasts. The galaxy was burning, and humanity was leading the charge. Dr. Helen Barnes had perfected her quantum disruption technology during the campaign. Now, human fleets could disable entire star systems with a single device. The Confederation's technological advantage had become their greatest weakness, as every system they relied on could be turned off with the press of a button. Sir, we're getting reports from the Liberation Fleet in the Arcturus sector, said Lieutenant Amy Sullivan. Commander Rick Stone has successfully freed the mining colonies there. Over 2 million beings rescued, including about 50,000 humans who were taken during the early raids on Earth. Phillips nodded. The rescue of enslaved humans was always a priority, but they had discovered something that made their anger burn even hotter. The Confederation hadn't just enslaved recent captives. They had been taking humans for over a century, using stealth raids on remote areas to avoid detection. Entire generations of humans had lived and died in alien chains. New voice came over the communication system. Admiral Phillips, this is General Kess of the Catherian Liberation Front. We have successfully taken the Zenthari fortress world of Crystalline Prime. The crystal beings are requesting terms. Phillips smiled grimly. The Zenthari had been among the worst of the Confederation's ruling species. Their crystal bodies made them nearly immortal, and they had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of breaking other species' spirits. Tell General Kess there are no terms. The Zenthari leadership is to be eliminated completely. Their knowledge of slave-breaking techniques dies with them. Captain Morrison looked up from his console. Kate, are you sure about this? Some of our allies think we're going too far. The Catherians believe in rehabilitation, not extinction. Phillips turned to face him, her eyes hard as steel. Jake, how many species has the Confederation wiped out completely over the centuries? How many civilizations have they erased from existence? According to the records we captured, at least 47 confirmed extinct species, probably more that we don't know about. And how many children were taken from their parents and trained to love their captors? How many entire worlds were strip-mined until nothing was left but dead rock? Morrison was quiet for a moment. He had seen the records, too. The Confederation's crimes stretched back 10,000 years. Entire species bred for specific types of labor, worlds turned into factory farms where intelligent beings were treated like cattle. The galaxy needs to learn, Phillips continued. Any species that builds an empire on slavery will face complete annihilation. No mercy, no second chances, no rehabilitation. Only extinction. On the other side of the galaxy, Supreme Chancellor HFY stood in the emergency session of the Confederation Council. The crystalline being's body flickered with desperate energy as he addressed the remaining representatives. Many seats were empty now, their occupants killed when human forces had overrun their home systems. The human plague has infected 17 sectors, he reported to the terrified assembly. They are not content with freedom. They seek the complete destruction of our civilization. Senator Vorth of the Insectoid Collective clicked its mandibles nervously. Chancellor, perhaps we could negotiate. Offer them territory, resources, even full membership in the Council. HFY's crystal body flashed angry red. You fool! Did you not see the transmission from the Arcturus raid? When we offered surrender, their leader said, and I quote, "You had the chance for peace when we asked for it. You chose slavery, we choose extinction." The chamber fell silent. They had all seen the broadcasts that humanity sent out after each victory. The humans did not just defeat their enemies. They made sure everyone in the galaxy knew exactly what happened to slavers. "What do we do?" whispered Representative Zolth of the Aquatic Federation. Before HFY could answer, the chamber's main screen activated. The face that appeared was human, scarred from battle, with eyes that seemed to look right through them. "Greetings, Council of Slavers," Captain Morrison said, his voice carrying across the chamber. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Free Worlds Alliance. We know you're watching this transmission. We want you to understand something very important." The image changed to show a massive space station exploding in brilliant fire. That was your fortress at Sigma Draconis, population 3 million, status extinct. Another explosion filled the screen. The Zenthari crystal forges at Gamma Centauri. They used to make the control collars for your slave camps. Status extinct. Image after image of destroyed installations flashed across the screen. Military, bases, slave processing centers. Entire worlds turned to ash. "You have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years, Morrison continued. "You thought you were gods among mortals. You were wrong. You were just bullies who had never met anyone willing to fight back." The final image showed Earth, blue and beautiful against the black of space. "This is our world, the world you tried to enslave. It still lives, and so do we. But every world that participated in our enslavement, every species that supported the Confederation's crimes will face the same choice. Abandon your empire completely or join it in extinction." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. 3 years later, Captain Morrison stood on the observation deck of the Alliance flagship and watched the last Confederation stronghold burn. The war was over. Humanity and their allies had freed every enslaved species and destroyed every trace of the old empire. The galaxy was a different place now. The Free Worlds Alliance governed through cooperation instead of conquest. Species that had been slaves for millennia were learning to be free again. Children grew up without fear of being taken from their families, but scattered throughout space on hidden worlds and secret bases, the surviving members of the Confederation leadership lived in terror. They knew that humanity never forgot and never forgave. Any attempt to restart their empire would bring swift and absolute retaliation. Morrison smiled as he looked out at the stars. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Freedom was not something that could be taken away as long as there were humans willing to fight for it, and humanity would always be willing to fight. War Marshal Kethmore stood on the bridge of his flagship Eternal Dominion and watched the human home system grow larger on his screens. Behind him stretched the largest fleet in galactic history, 8,200 ships from every corner of the Confederation, all here to crush one small species that had dared to resist. "Marshal, we are detecting human vessels," reported his tactical officer. 12 ships holding position near their 4th planet. Kethmore laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 12 ships against 8,000. These humans are either very brave or very stupid. On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Admiral Kate Phillips watched the alien armada approach. The fleet was so large it blotted out the stars. Each ship was the size of a city, armed with weapons that could destroy planets. Against them, humanity had managed to gather only 15 vessels, most of them damaged from months of guerrilla warfare. "Admiral, we're being hailed by the alien flagship," reported Lieutenant Amy Sullivan. "Put them through." The face that appeared on the screen was nightmare made real. Kethmore looked like a dragon that had been crossed with a machine. His scales were black as space, and his eyes burned with the light of dying stars. "Human Admiral, I am War Marshal Kethmore. You will surrender immediately and order your people to submit for processing. Do this, and I will make your deaths quick." Phillips smiled back at him. "Marshal, I'm Admiral Kate Phillips. I have a counteroffer. Leave our system now, and we won't kill all of you." The dragon creature stared at her for a moment, then threw back his head and roared with laughter. "You have 15 ships. I have 8,000. What could you possibly do to threaten me?" "You'll find out soon enough." Phillips cut the transmission and turned to her crew. Hidden throughout the solar system, every asteroid, every moon, every piece of space debris had been turned into a weapon. The plan was insane, but it was their only chance. Captain Jake Morrison crouched in the ruins of what had once been Los Angeles. His team of freed slaves and human resistance fighters watched the alien landing ships descend from orbit. The enemy thought they were coming to mop up the last of human resistance. They had no idea what was waiting for them. "Remember, let them land," Morrison whispered into his comm unit. "We need them all inside the trap before we spring it." Hidden in bunkers across Earth, resistance cells led by Colonel Danny Rogers prepared for the biggest fight of their lives. They had spent weeks rigging the major cities with Dr. Helen Barnes's sonic disruptors and improvised explosives. Every building, every street, every subway tunnel was a potential weapon. The alien troops that landed were confident and relaxed. They had done this hundreds of times before, crush the military, round up the civilians, and ship them off to slave camps. It was routine. Commander Jennifer Walsh watched from her hidden command post on Luna as the trap began to close. The alien fleet had moved deeper into the solar system, drawn by the small human fleet that seemed to be making a desperate last stand near Mars. "All stations, this is Control," she broadcast on encrypted channels. "The fish are in the barrel. Prepare to activate the quantum disruptor on my mark." Dr. Helen Barnes stood in the solar collection facility that had been built in secret over the past 3 months. Massive mirrors focused the sun's energy into a single point where her quantum disruptor waited. The device was beautiful in its simplicity, but the power it was about to unleash would change everything. "Admiral, we're ready," she reported to Phillips. "Once I activate this, every quantum system within 3 light years will shut down. Their shields, their weapons, their life support, everything." "Do it." Helen's finger hesitated over the activation switch. Once she pressed it, there would be no going back. The electromagnetic pulse would destroy most of Earth's technology as well. Humanity would be thrown back centuries, but they would be free. She pressed the button. The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the solar system, 8,000 alien warships suddenly went dark. Their shields collapsed, their weapons went offline, and their engines died. The most advanced fleet in galactic history became 8,000 helpless metal boxes floating in space. All units, this is Admiral Phillips, came the broadcast on every human channel. The aliens are helpless. Show them what happens when you attack Earth. What followed was not a battle, but a massacre. Human ships armed with simple kinetic weapons and explosives moved through the alien fleet like wolves among sheep. The enemy, vessels designed to fight other high-tech civilizations, had no defense against crude but effective human tactics. Captain Morrison led the ground assault as alien troops found themselves cut off from their ships and support. The sonic disruptors turned their crystal-bodied commanders into piles of shattered glass. Explosive charges brought down their walking tanks. Human fighters, armed with weapons that would have been ancient by alien standards, tore through enemy forces that suddenly could not call for help or coordinate their attacks. On his flagship, War Marshal Kethmore watched his perfect fleet burn around him. Emergency power kept life support running, but everything else was dead. His communications were gone. His weapons were gone. His shields were gone. How? He whispered to his tactical officer. How did they do this? Before anyone could answer, human boarding parties cut through his hull. The soldiers who came through the breach moved like they had been born for war. They showed no mercy and took no prisoners. Kethmore tried to activate his personal shield generator, but it was as dead as everything else. The human leader, a scarred man with cold eyes, walked up to him and spoke in perfect Draconic. My name is Captain Jake Morrison. You came here to enslave my people. Instead, you're going to send a message to your masters. The Marshal tried to stand tall, to maintain some dignity in defeat. You cannot win. Even if you destroy this fleet, the Confederation has thousands more. We will keep coming until you are extinct. Morrison smiled, and it was a terrible thing to see. That's what I'm counting on. You see, Marshal, your people made one very important mistake. You thought we were fighting for our world. We're not. We're fighting to destroy everything you've built. Through the ship's porthole, Kethmore could see the wreckage of his fleet. 8,000 ships reduced to scrap metal and floating debris. The largest military force in galactic history, defeated by a species the Confederation had considered primitive. Morrison activated a recording device. You're going to tell every species in the galaxy what happened here today. You're going to tell them that humanity doesn't just fight back. We fight to win, and we don't stop until our enemies are completely destroyed. As the transmission was prepared for broadcast across the Confederation's quantum network, Admiral Phillips stood on the bridge of her ship and looked out at the graveyard that had once been an invading fleet. Earth was free, but she knew this was just the beginning. The aliens had taught humanity a valuable lesson about the galaxy. Now humanity was going to teach the galaxy a lesson about humans. And it was going to be a lesson that would echo across the stars for 1,000 years. 6 months had passed since the alien ships came to Earth. Admiral Kate Phillips crouched in the shadows of the asteroid belt, watching the enemy patrol ships through the porthole of her hidden base. The UES Defiance floated silently among the rocks, one of only 12 human ships that had escaped the invasion. Admiral, we're getting another transmission from the Resistance on Earth. reported Lieutenant Amy Sullivan from the communications station. Her voice was tired. They were all tired. Fighting a war against an entire galaxy was wearing them down. Kate moved to the comm station and put on the headset. The voice that came through was scratchy and broken, but she recognized it immediately. Colonel Danny Rogers, former Marine, now leader of the largest resistance cell on Earth. Phillips, this is Rogers. The aliens just finished loading another transport ship. They're taking 10,000 people this time, mostly young adults. We think they're going to the mining colonies in the Vega system. Kate closed her eyes. 10,000 more humans shipped off to work themselves to death on alien worlds. The Confederation had divided humanity into groups based on what they were useful for. The strong went to mines. The smart ones became living computers for alien systems. Children were sent to special schools where they learned to serve their alien masters without question. Any word on Captain Morrison? Kate asked. Nothing yet. We know he escaped from the prison ship 3 weeks ago, but we lost contact. Could be anywhere in the galaxy by now. Kate nodded. Jake Morrison was tough. If anyone could survive out there, it was him. Rogers, we need more information about their communication systems. Can your people get closer to their command centers? We're trying, but they've got those crystal beings guarding everything important. The Zenthari don't sleep, and they can see in directions we can't even think about. We lost 6 good people last week trying to get into their data facility in New York. Before Kate could respond, Dr. Helen Barnes burst into the communications room. Her lab coat was stained with grease and her hair was a mess, but her eyes were bright with excitement. Admiral, I figured out how their quantum networks work. We might have a way to hurt them. Kate ended the call with Rogers and followed Helen to her makeshift laboratory. The room was filled with pieces of alien technology that had been salvaged from destroyed ships. Wires and circuits covered every surface. Look at this, Helen said, pointing to a device that looked like a metal flower. This is a communication relay from one of their destroyers. All their ships, all their bases, everything is connected through quantum entanglement. It's brilliant, really. Instant communication across any distance. That's nice, Helen. But how does it help us? Helen grinned and picked up another device. Because they all operate on the same frequency. Every ship, every base, every communication system in their entire empire uses the same quantum signature. If we could disrupt that frequency, their entire network would go down, Kate finished, understanding beginning to dawn. No communications, no coordination. Better than that. Their shields use the same technology. So do their weapons targeting systems. Disrupt the quantum field and they become sitting ducks. Kate felt hope stirring in her chest for the first time in months. What do you need? Time, resources, and about 6 of their quantum cores. The disruption has to be perfectly timed and extremely powerful. We'd only get one shot at this. Amy Sullivan looked up from her station. Admiral, I'm picking up encrypted transmissions between the alien command ships. They're discussing something, called the Final Protocol. Kate and Helen moved to the communications station. Amy had managed to break part of the alien encryption using captured equipment. Play it back, Kate ordered. The voice that came through was cold and mechanical, translated from some alien language. Species 7047 continues to show resistance behaviors. Integration has been partially successful, but rebel elements persist. Recommendation: implement final protocol within 6 standard cycles. Another voice responded. Confirmed. Species 7847 has proven too costly to maintain. Begin systematic elimination. Preserve useful specimens for study. Eliminate the rest. The room went silent. Kate felt her blood turn to ice. Species 7847 was humanity. The aliens were planning to kill them all. "How long is 6 standard cycles?" Helen asked. Amy worked on her console for a moment. "Based on their time measurements, about 6 months. They're giving us 6 months before they wipe us out." Kate turned to look at her small crew. 15 people in a hidden base, fighting against an empire that controlled thousands of star systems. The smart thing would be to run. Take their ship and disappear into the unknown regions of space. Find some empty world and try to rebuild. But Kate Phillips had never been accused of being smart. She had been accused of being stubborn, reckless, and too angry for her own good. Right now, those seemed like the perfect qualities for the job. "Helen, you have 3 months to build your quantum disruptor. Amy, I want you to contact every resistance cell on Earth and every human ship still out there. We're going to hit them with everything we have." "Admiral," Amy said quietly, "even if we get every ship and every fighter, we're talking about maybe 50 vessels against their entire fleet. They have over 10,000 ships just in this sector." Kate smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Then we'll make sure those 50 ships count. Helen, can your weapon work on a large scale?" Helen thought for a moment. "Theoretically, yes. If we could get close enough to their main fleet, we could disrupt every ship at once, but we'd have to be right on top of them, and the power requirements would be enormous." "What if we used our sun?" Both women stared at Kate as if she had lost her mind. "The sun produces more energy in 1 second than humanity has used in its entire history," Kate continued. "If we could channel even a tiny fraction of that through Helen's quantum disruptor—" "It would work," Helen whispered. "It would actually work, but we'd have to let them come to us. We'd have to make them think they were winning right up until the moment we triggered the device." Amy looked between them. "You're talking about turning our entire solar system into a trap? What if something goes wrong? What if they don't take the bait?" Kate walked to the porthole and looked out at the distant sun. Earth was out there somewhere, crawling with alien ships and slave camps. Millions of humans were suffering under alien rule, and millions more were going to die if the final protocol went forward. "Then we die fighting instead of on our knees," she said. "Amy, send a message to all resistance cells. Tell them we're coming home. Tell them to get ready for the biggest fight in human history." As the tiny human fleet prepared to leave their hiding place, none of them knew that Captain Jake Morrison was already free and making his way back to Earth with stolen alien technology and a burning desire for revenge. The pieces were moving into position for a battle that would shake the galaxy. The silence in the council chamber felt heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm. Claire Harrison watched as the alien delegates whispered among themselves in their strange languages. Some were clearly arguing, their voices rising in agitation. Others sat perfectly still, as if afraid that any movement might attract the attention of the humans. Finally, Prime Veltar spoke. His musical voice was much quieter than before, stripped of its earlier arrogance. "What exactly are your terms, Ambassador Harrison?" Claire straightened her shoulders and spoke clearly. "The same terms offered to every other species when they joined the Galactic Council. Full membership status, equal voting rights, unrestricted colonization privileges, and open trading agreements. And if we refuse these terms, then Captain Cole will withdraw the retribution. I'll return to Earth with a full report, and humanity will proceed with our own plans for galactic expansion." Claire kept her voice calm and professional. "We'll explore and colonize as we see fit. Establish our own trade networks and defend our interests as necessary. The implications were clear to everyone in the chamber. Humanity would not be confined to their home system. They would spread across the galaxy whether the Council approved or not. And with their military capabilities, there was nothing anyone could do to stop them. One of the Vraktar delegates, its compound eyes reflecting the chamber's lights, clicked nervously. How many humans exist in total? Jake Morrison consulted his data pad. Current population stands at approximately 12.4 billion on Earth and in our colonies. Another 800 million live on space stations, asteroid mining facilities, and generation ships. The mathematical reality hit the chamber like a physical blow. The largest alien empire, the Zephyrian Confederacy, had only 2.8 billion citizens spread across 40 star systems. Humanity's population was more than 4 times larger, and they were all concentrated in a single star system that had apparently become a massive military production center. Thok, the massive Gorvani delegate, rumbled a question that seemed to shake the floor. Your entire species is militarized? Not at all, Claire laughed, and the sound made several aliens flinch. Only about 280 million humans serve in our military forces. That's less than 3% of our total population. The rest are farmers, engineers, teachers, artists, scientists, doctors, all the normal occupations you'd expect. Then how do you maintain such a large military? Asked Pip, the small mouse-like delegate. Because peaceful people understand the value of good defenses, Captain Cole's voice explained through the speakers. When civilians build warships, they tend to build very good ones. They put the same care and attention into military equipment that they put into everything else. You see, Claire continued, most of our military personnel are volunteers who serve for a few years and then return to civilian life. But they take their training with them. Every human cargo ship captain knows basic military tactics. Every engineer understands weapon systems. Every computer programmer can write targeting software. The terrifying picture was becoming clear to the alien delegates. Humanity wasn't just a military force. It was an entire civilization that had learned to think like soldiers while remaining fundamentally peaceful. This is impossible, Veltar protested weakly. No species can maintain such capabilities without constant warfare. You're wrong about that, Jake replied. Humans have been at peace for over 60 years. Our last major war ended before most of our current military leaders were even born. Then why maintain such weapons? Because we remember what happens when we don't, Claire said simply. Human history is full of peaceful societies that were destroyed because they couldn't defend themselves. We decided long ago that we would never be helpless again. The chamber fell quiet once more as the delegates consulted among themselves. Claire could see the fear in their alien features. They had expected to deal with a primitive species that could be easily controlled. Instead, they faced a civilization that was potentially more advanced than their own, certainly more dangerous, and absolutely committed to their own freedom. After what felt like hours, Veltar called for order. The Galactic Council will now vote on humanity's request for full membership. One by one, the alien species cast their votes. The Zephyrians voted yes, their musical voices subdued. The Vraktar clicked their approval reluctantly. The Gorvani rumbled their agreement. Even the smallest species squeaked their consent. The vote was unanimous. The Galactic Council recognizes humanity's request for full membership, Veltar announced formally. All standard privileges and responsibilities will apply immediately. Welcome to the galactic community. Claire smiled genuinely for the first time since arriving at the station. Thank you, Prime Veltar. We look forward to productive cooperation with all member species. As the formal ceremonies concluded and the various delegates began filing, out of the chamber many stopped to speak with the human representatives. Their attitudes had changed completely from the day before. Where there had been condescension and mockery, now there was careful respect and barely concealed nervousness. The Vraktar delegate approached Claire with obvious reluctance. "Ambassador Harrison, my species would like to discuss trade agreements for rare metals. We understand humans are excellent miners. We'd be happy to discuss fair trade partnerships," Claire replied diplomatically. "I'm sure we can find arrangements that benefit everyone." As the last of the delegates left, Veltar approached Claire privately. His tall, ethereal form seemed somehow diminished. "Ambassador, I must ask you something." "Of course. Would you truly have used those weapons if we had refused your request?" Claire considered the question carefully. "Prime Veltar, humans have a saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. We desperately want to speak softly. We prefer trade to raids, cooperation to conquest, diplomacy to destruction. But we've learned through painful experience that peace is only possible when everyone understands the cost of war." Claire gestured toward the view screen that still showed the retribution. "That ship represents everything we hope we never have to use. The fact that we built her proves how committed we are to making sure we don't need her." Veltar seemed to consider this. "Your species is remarkably complex." "All species are complex when you take the time to understand them," Claire replied. "The difference is that humans have spent our entire evolutionary history learning to cooperate despite our differences. We've gotten very good at it, and very good at warfare as well. The two skills are more related than you might think. Both require understanding your opponent, planning for multiple scenarios, and knowing when to push and when to compromise." Claire smiled. "We just prefer to use those skills for building things rather than destroying them." As the human delegation prepared to leave the station, Claire received a final message from Admiral Brooks on Earth. "Congratulations on successful first contact. The Retribution is standing down and returning to standard patrol duties. The President sends his regards and looks forward to humanity's future among the stars." Looking out at the vast expanse of space through the station's viewing ports, Claire felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Humanity had just joined the galactic community not as servants or entertainment, but as equals. They had done it the human way by making it absolutely clear that while they strongly preferred peace, they were exceptionally well prepared for any alternative. The galaxy would never again mistake human diplomacy for human weakness. And perhaps, with humanity's example, other species would learn that true strength came not from the willingness to fight, but from the wisdom to avoid fighting whenever possible. The stars beckoned, full of possibilities for trade, exploration, and friendship. Humanity was finally free to walk among them as equals, carrying both open hands and the biggest stick the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Zektar of the Zephyrian Empire stared at the empty space where his patrol fleet should have been. 3 hours ago, 12 ships had entered the abandoned human system of New Geneva to search for survivors. Now there was nothing. "Search all frequencies," he ordered his communications officer. "There must be some trace of them." The young officer worked frantically at his console. "Nothing, sir. No distress signals, no wreckage, no energy signatures. It's as if they just vanished." Zektar felt a chill run down his spine. In 40 years of military service, He had never seen anything like this. Ships didn't just disappear. There was always something left behind. Debris, radiation, some sign of what had happened. But the New Geneva system was completely empty. No signs of battle. No evidence of any human presence. Just 12 missing ships and silence. Light years away, Captain Ryan Kelly stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching his crew work. The ship was unlike anything humans had ever built before. Dark metal hull that absorbed sensor beams. Weapons that fired energy beams invisible to alien detection systems. And most importantly, a new type of engine that left no hyperspace trail. "Target eliminated, sir," reported his weapons officer, Lieutenant Kate Brooks. "The Zephyrian patrol fleet has been completely destroyed." Ryan nodded. The attack had taken less than 10 minutes. The Retribution had appeared behind the alien ships without warning, fired a single volley, and watched them disintegrate. The new human weapons didn't just destroy ships. They turned them into dust so fine that sensors couldn't detect it. "Any survivors?" Ryan asked. "None, sir," Kate replied. "As ordered." This was the new rule. No prisoners, no survivors, no mercy. The aliens had shown no mercy to Earth. Humans would return the favor. "Set course for the next target," Ryan ordered. "The Zephyrians have a supply depot in the Arcturus system. Let's pay them a visit." Marine Colonel Beth Martin was preparing for a very different kind of mission. Her transport ship, the Silent Death, was approaching a Zephyrian space station. Unlike the Retribution's long-range attacks, Beth's job was up close and personal. "Remember, everyone," she told her Marines over the comm system, "we don't want to destroy the station. We want the information inside it. That means boarding action." The Marines in the transport bay were not the same people they had been before Earth died. Each one had been enhanced with alien biotechnology that humans had been secretly developing for years. They were stronger, faster, and harder to kill than normal humans. More importantly, they no longer felt fear or doubt. The destruction of Earth had burned those emotions out of them. "Boarding pods are ready," reported Sergeant Bill Shaw. "We can have teams on that station in 5 minutes." Beth studied the tactical display. The Zephyrian station had 200 crew members. Her attack force had only 30 Marines. Before the war, that would have been suicide. Now it was just, "Another mission! Launch when ready," she ordered. The boarding pods shot across space like bullets. Each one carried 3 Marines and enough firepower to level a city block. The pods were coated with the same sensor-absorbing metal as the human warships. The Zephyrians wouldn't see them coming. On the Zephyrian station, Security Chief Mordan was reviewing routine reports when his alarm started screaming. He rushed to the command center where chaos was erupting. "What's happening?" he demanded. "Unknown contacts," shouted the sensor operator. "No, wait. The contacts disappeared. Now they're back. Sir, I don't understand these readings." Mordan studied the displays. The sensors were showing impossible things. Objects that appeared and disappeared. Energy signatures that made no sense. Ships that seemed to exist and not exist at the same time. "Are we under attack?" he asked. Before anyone could answer, the station shook violently. Emergency lights began flashing, and the sound of explosions echoed through the corridors. "Hull. Breach on level 7, someone shouted. "No, wait, multiple hull breaches. They're everywhere." Mordan grabbed his weapon and headed for the security station. Whatever was attacking them, he would make sure his people were ready to fight. He never made it there. Beth Martin moved through the station corridors like a deadly shadow. Her enhanced muscles let her move faster than any Zephyrian could react. Her modified armor absorbed their weapons' fire, and her new rifle fired bullets that could punch through 3 feet of solid metal. Behind her, her Marines spread through the station like a plague. They moved with perfect coordination, communicating through implants that let them share thoughts instantly. Each one knew exactly where the others were and what they were doing. The Zephyrians tried to fight back. They had weapons and training. But they had never faced anything like enhanced humans before. Their energy weapons bounced harmlessly off human armor. Their tactics were designed to fight other aliens, not creatures that moved like ghosts and hit like thunderstorms. In 12 minutes, the station was quiet. "Station secured," Beth reported to Ryan on the Retribution. "All enemy personnel eliminated. Downloading their computer files now." "Any useful intelligence?" Ryan asked. Beth was already reviewing the data. "Fleet positions, supply routes, communications codes, and something else. They've been talking to other alien species about the human problem." "What kind of talking?" "The kind where they're asking for help hunting us down." Ryan's expression darkened. The Zephyrians weren't content with destroying Earth. They wanted to wipe out all humans everywhere, and they were trying to convince other species to help them do it. "Download everything and then destroy the station," he ordered. "Make sure there's nothing left." "Understood, sir." 5 minutes later, the Zephyrian station exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from 3 star systems away. But it wasn't random destruction. The explosion was carefully designed to look like an internal malfunction. Just another mysterious accident. Navigation Officer Paul Turner was working on his greatest creation yet. In his laboratory on the hidden human base, he was designing something that would change space warfare forever. "Computer, run Simulation 17, he said. His screen showed a complex 3-dimensional map of hyperspace routes. But these weren't normal routes. These were paths through dimensions that alien species didn't even know existed. Paul had discovered that human brains worked differently than alien brains. Humans could process spatial relationships in ways that other species couldn't. This let them navigate through parts of hyperspace that were invisible to alien sensors. "Simulation complete," the computer announced. "Success probability, 97%. Paul smiled. With his new navigation system, human ships could appear anywhere in the galaxy instantly. They could strike at any target and be gone before the enemy even knew they were there. "Send the calculations to all fleet commanders," he ordered. "Tell them we're ready for Phase 2 of the operation." Across the galaxy, human ships received Paul's navigation data. The Ghost Fleet, as they had started calling themselves, now had the ability to be truly ghostly. They could appear and disappear at will, striking targets and vanishing before anyone could respond. Admiral Zektar was studying reports from across Zephyrian space when he realized the scope of what was happening. In the past month, 17 patrol fleets had disappeared. 23 space stations had been destroyed by accidents. 46 supply convoys had vanished without a trace. At first, he had thought it was just bad luck. Space was dangerous, and sometimes ships were lost. But the pattern was becoming clear. Someone was hunting Zephyrian forces systematically. "Sir," his aide approached nervously. "We've received a transmission. It's on all frequencies, in all languages." "From who?" "The message says it's from the human Ghost Fleet." Zektar felt his blood turn cold. The humans were supposed to be beaten. Their homeworld was destroyed. Their fleet was scattered. They should be hiding in fear, not launching attacks. "Play the message," he ordered. The screen filled with the image of a human in a dark military uniform. The human's eyes were cold and empty, like looking into the void of space. "This is Captain Ryan Kelly of the human ghost fleet," the figure said. "You destroyed our world. You killed our families. You thought that would break us. You were wrong." The human paused, and Zektar could see something terrible in those empty eyes. "We are no longer bound by your rules or your laws. We are no longer interested in your surrender or your mercy. You wanted a war with humanity. Now you have one." The message ended, leaving Zektar staring at a blank screen. For the first time in his long military career, he felt afraid. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, the Ghost Fleet was waiting, and they were hungry for revenge.